네, 저희 시작하기 전에 먼저 사진부터 찍고 시작하도록 하겠습니다. 네, 사진 찍고 바로 저희 세션 3 시작하도록 하겠습니다. 치즈, 김치. We have professional photographer for you. So move a little bit towards right. Thumbs up, thumb up. That was perfect. Okay, then let us get started with session 3. So everyone, please come up to the stage. All the panelists and moderator, please come up to the stage. 네, 그러면 오늘 마지막 세션이죠. 세션 3 시작하도록 하겠습니다. 세 번째 세션은 글로벌 항만 협력 성공 사례와 향후 협력 방안인데요. 네, 저희
So now we will begin the session. Port Success and Future Collaboration, and the moderator will be the Professor Thanos Pilis, and we are joined by the Noel Haskaba, Semjo Jensmeyer, Gerardo Landaluce, Chairman of the Algeciras Bay Port Authority, and Tiger Huang from the Taiwan International Ports Corporation, and Jorge Torrent, Head of Business Strategy from Barcelona Port Authority, as well as the Samuel Xu from the MPA Singapore. So, ladies and gentlemen, please welcome them with a big hand.
Thank you very much. Welcome to this final, I would say, most interesting session of the conference. We're going to have some executives from 3 different continents. The theme of the conference is Connecting Continents, Ports in Unity. So that's the very essence to have ports from different continents discussing about collaboration, about success, and about the future. We will start with an intervention by the President of the International Association of Ports and Harbors and CEO of the Hamburg Port Authority, Mr. Jens Meyers. We are going to talk about workforce innovation, collaboration, and many other things. The floor is yours. Thank you.
Take this? Yeah, it works. Thank you very much. Yeah, dear Thanos, dear ladies and gentlemen, as I said before, I'm absolutely delighted, and it's a great pleasure today being here with you in Busan. And let me begin with a quote I shared at this very interesting conference in 2020. It's better to light a candle than to curse the darkness, I said at that time. The wisdom remains profoundly relevant today as we face now challenges in our industry. Allow me to ask a question, and it came up a little bit also in the last session. Have you ever wondered how your company or your port could maintain its performance with 30% less staff or employees? And not because you want to reduce or rationalize your workforce, but because you simply will not be able to find the right personnel or employees on the market anymore. This is a challenge that we are facing not only in Europe, also in the industry in North America, maybe also here in South Korea. Therefore, it's crucial to address this issue head-on and find innovative solutions to ensure that despite the decreasing of availability of skilled workers, our operations remain efficient and effective. And this brings me to the 3 key areas I would like to address in the next few minutes. Firstly, how automation, digitization, and innovation are helping us tackle workforce shortages and boost port efficiency. Secondly, the challenge we face in employee recruitment. And finally, how increased automation is driving sustainability in our industry. Ladies and gentlemen, we are currently experiencing what's often called a lack of workforce. It's no longer about competing for the best talents, but about securing enough qualified personnel at all. In the darkness of workforce shortage, AI and automation are my candles or our candles we can light. By leveraging these technologies, we can have machines take over certain tasks, not to replace employees, but to use their skills more effectively. For instance, in Hamburg, we are already using robots and AI to perform dangerous and time-consuming tasks. Our robot dog Spot, you can see here on the picture, can easily access narrow, high, or deep parts of structures, such as bridges, collecting data that is then evaluated by using AI. My research and development manager always tells our employees and our audiences, in the past, the mechanics, they were using a hammer, or the young generation are using their smartphones every day. He's absolutely sure that robots will become the same position in the future. Let's call it like this. We will see, maybe in 5 years on this conference, I will ask that question where we are. In addition, various types of drones are already enhancing operations at the Port of Hamburg that allows for predictive maintenance, plannings, and so on. Now I ask you to consider how can we, in our respective ports, light these candles of innovation. Now let's address the challenge of employee recruitment. At the Hamburg Port Authority, we face a shared challenge with all of you: the high diversity of professional groups within our organization. To light our path forward, we have implemented several strategies. We are leveraging modern IT systems and process automation to increase the appeal of our work environment, creating development opportunities for all employees. Our brightest candle in talent acquisition is our focus on recruiting young professionals. This strengthens our future workforce and embraces the diversity of various professional fields. Finally, I'd like to highlight our port exchange program, as mentioned this morning, and the Chain Port Academy. These initiatives promote global networking between ports, offering our employees valuable international experiences. I'm pleased to report that these programs have been exceptionally well received within our organization, significantly boosting employee motivation and engagement. It's important to recognize the opportunities for exchange worldwide offered by significant international associations like the IAPH or our smaller chain port initiative. We should seize these chances together with all of you within our organization. By participating in such organizations, our employees gain fresh perspectives, build global networks, and bring innovative ideas back to our ports. Dear attendees, I invite you to consider how can we, as a global port community, further leverage these international exchange opportunities. Ladies and gentlemen, let's now turn our attention to perhaps the brightest flame of all: sustainability through increased automation. The name of the game, dear attendees, is capacity. In our rapidly evolving industry, ports need systems that allow us to be exposed to as many capacity opportunities as possible. Just as we have lit candles of innovation in our recruitment and port operations, we must now illuminate new pathways in the supply chains. Let's consider the concept of conscious factories and supply chains. Imagine a factory that is fully automated, green, agile, and flexible for each product and variant. This conscious factory leverages big data and self-learning algorithms to predict risk and deviations. But it doesn't stop at the factory gates. This consciousness extends throughout the entire supply chain, bringing all data together in the cohesive system. Here, the port becomes not just a node in this network, but an intelligent, responsive part of the system. This allows us to be exposed to more capacity opportunities and to better manage future challenges. I ask you, esteemed partners, how can we, as port authorities, contribute to these conscious supply chains? How can we ensure that our ports are intelligent, responsive nodes that enhance the entire system's sustainability and efficiency? In conclusion, by embracing innovation, addressing our workforce challenges creatively, and pursuing sustainability through smart automation, we can illuminate the path forward for our ports. Thank you for your attention, and I'm looking forward to the fruitful discussion of the panel. Thank you very much.
Thank you for the intervention. Should we take one question if there is any for you? Is there any question from the audience? It's a great opportunity to ask one question. We can take if there is any or not. In the meantime, to break the ice, I can tell that IAPH is holding their annual conference on the 8th of October in Hamburg, and perhaps you might want to join if you have forgotten to do so. Any other question? Any question? No. Once more, thank you very much for the intervention. All right, as promised, we are going to change continents. We are heading to the US. We are heading to Seattle first. We'll go to the west coast of Seattle. We have with us the Commissioner of Port of Seattle, Sam Cho, will have an intervention which will talk about Port of the Future and sustainability and a few other things. The floor is yours. Thank you very much.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Sam Cho. I serve as the Commissioner of the Port of Seattle. 안녕하세요. 시애틀 한만청 의원 샘조라고 합니다. This is actually my third BIPC conference now, and so first and foremost, I want to thank BPA for continuing to invite me to have these amazing conversations. The title of this session is Success and Future Collaboration. And so I wanted to talk about success and future collaboration within the context of our sustainability goals. Now, the Port of Seattle has made some aggressive commitments to becoming net zero. We've made a commitment to halving our emissions by the year 2030 and by becoming net zero by the year 2040. Now, this actually includes all Scope 3 emissions. One of the challenges that the vast majority of port authorities face is the fact that port authorities are not regulatory agencies. And while it would be nice for us to have to regulate the industry into sustainable practices, the reality is that we need other mechanisms in order to do that. And I'm excited to talk about some of the ways that we've been doing that through collaboration. But first, I want to make sure that everyone has a level set understanding of the Port of Seattle and our diversified businesses. I would caution to say that the Port of Seattle is probably one of the most diversified ports in terms of its business lines in North America. And the reason I say that is, as you can see within our footprint here, we have about 80 properties that span the greater Seattle area. This map here shows you exactly where those properties are, but it's also color-coded based on what kind of facilities we're talking about. If you look at the yellow highlight, those are all our cargo operations. The green, it highlights some of our wreck boat marinas and a few other facilities, including our grain terminal, our commercial fishing operation as well. And then what makes us truly unique is actually the fact that down south in the teal, on the blue, is the airport. And so if you've ever flown through Seattle-Tacoma International Airport, what makes us very, very special is the fact that we actually have aviation within our portfolio too. So why does this matter? This matters because we see sustainability through the lens of all these different perspectives. And I think because we are able to look at sustainability through all these different lines of businesses, we have a unique and special way of approaching it as well. I also want to mention here that Seattle is actually the largest cruise operation on the West Coast. We have about 275 sailings a year during the cruise season, about 1.7 million passengers that go from Seattle up to Alaska. And so not only do we have containers and break bulk like traditional ports, but we also operate the largest cruise operation on the West Coast. I want to highlight a few initiatives that we have undertaken in the last couple years as a result of some of our collaborative efforts. The first is a port-to-port approach. The Northwest Clean Air Strategy is actually a pact between the Port of Seattle, Port of Tacoma, the Northwest Seaport Alliance, which is actually the alliance that manages the cargo operations between the two ports of Tacoma and Seattle, and the Port of Vancouver. And if you look at those 4 ports, you're looking at basically the entire Northwest region. And so we've taken a regional approach, partnering with the largest ports in the Northwest region of the United States to basically agree on the same targets and goals when it comes to sustainability. All 4 of these ports and entities have agreed to halve emissions by 2030. All 4 of these entities have agreed to basically become net zero by the year 2050. Now, why is this important? This is important because you have to remember that sustainability costs money. It's expensive to get to net zero. And oftentimes, the cost of becoming a sustainable port is passed down to the end consumer, or the carriers, or the BCOs. And because those costs get passed down, it becomes more expensive to do business with ports that might be pursuing more aggressive sustainability goals. Oftentimes, what happens is that this leads to a race to the bottom, where because we are all competing with each other, the cargo basically gets diverted to whichever port is cheaper. But if you have a regional approach, an approach where all the ports in the Northwest have agreed to the same sustainability goals, who are making the same investments to reach those carbon emission goals, you're basically eliminating that competition. The key principle here being that sustainability should not come at the cost of competitiveness. So it doesn't matter whether you go to Tacoma, Seattle, or Vancouver. The reality is that each of our ports are pursuing the same sustainability goals. And so a business decision based on pricing would not be influenced by the fact that we're all being sustainable. The reason that we've basically brought in Seattle, Tacoma, and Vancouver is because, as you can see here in the dark shaded green, those 3 ports are within the same airshed. And so that's why we've basically agreed to include these 4 ports. I mean, my grand vision is perhaps we can have a West Coast agreement someday so that all West Coast ports have the same strategy and approach. All right, you guys heard it here. They're in. The other 2 things I want to talk about is green corridors. And I'm sure many of you within the industry have heard about the Green Corridor Initiative. The first one is the Busan Green Corridor, Pacific Northwest to Busan Green Corridor. And this was announced at COP27 in Sharm el-Sheikh, Egypt 2 years ago. A pre-feasibility study was done, and the pre-feasibility study has basically led to 2 simultaneous feasibility studies. One that is around ro-ro vessels or car carrier vessels, specifically between the port of Ulsan and Tacoma. And the second is on the container side between the port of Busan and Seattle. And the reason this is important is because as we transition to sustainable fuels, these sustainable fuels will require a tremendous amount of bunkering. And there needs to be coordination amongst ports to provide the necessary bunkering so that these vessels can make full round trips with sustainable fuels. The last initiative that I want to touch upon is our Green Corridor on cruise. And we might be the only port in the United States that's actually working on 2 green corridors. This one is specific to Seattle and Alaska, with some ports in Canada involved as well. But this partnership and collaboration actually required the buy-in of the private sector tenants, mainly the 14 corporations and the 4 main cruise companies that calls Seattle their home port. The reality is that, like I said earlier, because we're not a regulatory agency, you need the buy-in. You need the stakeholders to be involved in this. And so we are currently in a process of transitioning the cruise industry towards sustainability as well. The last point I wanted to make here is around the different stakeholders. The main challenge in the maritime industry, as many of you already probably know, is that we're a very fragmented industry. We are not an industry that is vertically integrated like many other industries. If you look at the aviation industry, for instance, they've already converged on a sustainable fuel. That is not the case in the maritime industry. Because there's very vertical integration in our industry, you have several stakeholders. You have countless stakeholders. You have rail, you have the drayage trucks, you have the terminal operators, you have the dock workers, and then the carriers and the BCOs. But the only entity within this value chain that can convene all these players are ports. And that is the case not just for the Port of Seattle, but that's the case for any port. And so from our perspective, when we talk about success and collaboration, ports are natural conveners. Not only are they natural conveners, they're actually aggregators of demand for sustainability. If you think about the trucks, the vessels, the cruise vessels, the port is a natural nexus and a convener of all these entities. And so when we talk about future success, I believe that the ports are the key to ensuring that we reach those goals. Remember, maritime really only accounts for about 3% of greenhouse gas emissions in the world, right? In order for us to aggregate demand, you need the role of ports to convene everybody. I'll stop there and I'll pass it off to the next speaker. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Excellent. We will stay at the west coast of the US. Perhaps we'll have some news about a broader agreement. But I'll give the floor to Noel Hatchegaba, who is the Chief Operating Officer of the Port of Long Beach, and we're looking forward for his intervention.
Thank you very much. 안녕하세요. That's about all the Korean you're going to hear from me today. Until perhaps at the end when I say 안녕하세요, right? Or 감사합니다. It's a pleasure to be with you here in beautiful Busan. And I'd like to thank the Busan Port Authority, with whom the Port of Long Beach has enjoyed a fruitful sister ports relationship for more than 10 years. And we want to thank them for the kind invitation and the opportunity to participate in this incredible forum. Now, to address our topic, I'm going to tell you how we are building the port of the future. Now, Sam and I are good friends and colleagues, and I like him because we think alike. I did not expect that we would frame our presentations in the same way, but it just shows you how alike we are in our thinking. Collaboration is at the center of every major initiative, and it's the key to our success. And I think any port authority who's here in the audience would agree that success is vital not just for the port, but it's also vital for the broader port community, the local and regional economy, and for the nation's transportation system. And what we do in Long Beach is of national and international significance because of that. Now, President Abraham Lincoln once said that the best way to predict the future is to create it. Instead of waiting for the future to unfold, we are building the port of the future and leading the way on a number of fronts. Even during the global pandemic, we continued to build. During the supply chain crisis, ports went from being invisible to infamous, to very, very important. And in the United States, they made historic investments at the nation's ports as a result, as well as in the transportation system. And for example, the bipartisan infrastructure law signed by President Biden in November of 2022 allocated a record $1.2 trillion for infrastructure investments across the nation. I'm very pleased to report to you today that the Port of Long Beach was awarded $792 million from state and federal grant programs to help us build the Port of the Future. Now, we know that the Port of the Future is going to be more connected. And thanks to the support from the state of California, we are going to enhance our Supply Chain Information Highway Digital Initiative by connecting with other ports across the state and collaborating with the Port of Los Angeles, our neighbor, on a universal truck appointment system. Our vision is end-to-end visibility and coast-to-coast connectivity by collaborating with other ports across the U.S. and ultimately around the world. And you'll see on this map that we've included our friends at the Northwest Seaport Alliance. So if we can collaborate on digitalization, we can collaborate on sustainability. We also know that the port of the future is going to be green. We made a strategic decision to increase our on-dock rail capacity. We call our signature rail project America's Green Gateway, because it will enable us to move more containers between our port and the nation's key rail hubs. And this is a picture that took place in July. It was the Pier B on-dock rail support facility grand opening, and we were fortunate to have Secretary of Transportation Pete Buttigieg join us for that. Now, in addition to enhancing efficiency, velocity, and reliability, our Pier B rail project will also help us meet our clean air goals. Since 2005, the year that the Port of Long Beach announced our landmark green port policy that set us on a path to becoming the first green port, we have seen dramatic reductions in emissions. And as you can see on the slide, these results were possible only with the collaboration of our many partners. And we are now on a quest to becoming a zero emissions port. Now, I should note that this slide was submitted before we released our latest emissions inventory that was just presented to our board in a public setting yesterday, Long Beach time. And every category improved. The greatest improvement is on that last category on the far right, greenhouse gases. We've posted a 17% reduction in greenhouse gases since 2005, our baseline year. And I should note that all of these reductions in every category of emissions all came when our container volumes increased 20%. So this is an example that it is possible to grow green. It is possible to grow your capacity and your throughput in a sustainable way. Now, what's in our line of sight? Zero emissions cargo handling equipment by 2030. That's our goal. We're marching towards that goal. Our other goal is to have zero emissions trucks by 2035. And just to give you an example, at the ports of Los Angeles and Long Beach, there are approximately 23,000 trucks that do business in our complex day in and day out. Right now, only about 400 trucks are zero emission trucks. The vast majority are battery electric, about 55 are hydrogen powered. But our vision and our goal is to eventually transition the entire fleet to zero emissions. If there's one theme I want to leave you with, it's this. Teamwork makes the dream work. It takes all of us working together to get us to a cleaner future. And thankfully, all of our partners are stepping up. We also offer incentives such as the Green Ship Incentive and our Green Flag Vessel Speed Reduction programs. And we're also collaborating with ports across the Pacific to ensure that we're coordinating our efforts through green shipping corridors. For example, we're proud to be part of the green shipping and digital shipping corridor with the Port of Los Angeles and MPA Singapore. We're also proud to be a partner of the green shipping corridor with the Port of Shanghai. Another exciting development is the progress of battery electric locomotives. We have, at the Port of Long Beach, the first zero emissions locomotive in North America operating there in our complex. And as we transition to 100% zero emissions operations, our power consumption will grow 600%. And that's why we're also exploring green hydrogen. The Port of Long Beach is proud to be a founding member of a hydrogen hub called Arches Network, which seeks to deploy green hydrogen across the state of California. And thanks to partners like LBCT, you heard from Suri earlier, which is the greenest, cleanest, most technologically advanced terminal operation of any terminal in North America, and also partners like Toyota and Fuel Cell Energy. This Trigen facility that you see on the screen, located at the Port of Long Beach, converts directed renewable biogas into electricity, green hydrogen, and usable water with a highly efficient combustion-free process that emits virtually no air pollutants. Now, this brings me to our last initiative, our Pure Wind offshore wind energy project. To help the state of California meet its goal of 25 gigawatts of offshore wind by 2045, we're planning to develop a 400-acre site to assemble the world's largest wind turbines. In the future, This site will be repurposed as a container terminal. But again, this is just another example of how we consistently have to think outside the box and literally outside the docks. Think about the bigger picture. If we are to transition to a zero emissions port operation, we've got to find the clean, renewable power to power all of this equipment, all of these trucks, and everything that's involved in getting us to zero emissions. And this is just one example. Finally, and most importantly, the Port of the Future will require a highly skilled workforce. And that's why we're collaborating with the Port of Los Angeles, the ILWU, and the Pacific Maritime Association, and the state of California to build a state-of-the-art goods movement training facility to upskill and reskill our vital workforce. As you can see, collaboration is vital to our success, and it's at the center of everything that we're doing today and everything that we're planning to do in the future. So with that, ladies and gentlemen, this concludes my presentation, and I'll be happy to take any questions during the Q&A session. Thanks again.
Thank you very much, Noel. Actually, having two perspectives from the west coast of the US, we will head to Europe. We'll have intervention by the chairman of Algeciras Bay Port Authority, Gerardo Landaluce.
Yeah, thank you very much. It's a real pleasure to be here and enjoying the hospitality, Korean hospitality. And in addition to that, I would like to thank Chairman Khan for organizing and collaborating in this event. Actually, it's not the first time that I visit Busan. First time that I came here was in 2008. And the thing is that by those days, they introduced us their master plan, their projects, their vision. And every 3-4 years, we visit Busan again, and we realize that this vision has been already implemented. So congratulations, you have been doing a great job. Thank you. There is an old proverb that says that to move fast, go alone. And to go far, better to go together. So that's something that it's very clear, and it's well addressed for this session. Teamwork and collaboration are main pillars in our development strategy. It's in our ADM. Today more than ever, ports are strategic assets. Let me address 3 dimensions that I would like to share today. First one is operational efficiency. Second one is sustainability in terms of energy transition towards CO2 zero emissions. And the third one is security. Security is a must. So in the perspective of against illicit traffics and crime organized. It's something that we should take in consideration at the same time. Drivers like innovation and decarbonization as a shared drivers. Let's talk a little bit about and share with you our vision and our experience in the Strait of Gibraltar. In the Strait of Gibraltar, there is 6 ports in those areas. We have 3 in the north-south perspective and in 3 more in the south. But the real thing is that the Strait of Gibraltar, the present, is a crossroad. It's a crossroad of routes connecting east and west, and at the same time north and south. But at the same time, it's a crossroad for logistic chains and traffics. We have different logistic chains. We have the container activity associated with deep sea traffic, connecting Asia to Europe. At the same time, we have rural traffic associated to short sea, It's more connected with Europe to Africa. And we have, in addition to that, we have the nearshoring, which is represent full collaboration between the ports that were placed in the Strait of Gibraltar, our neighboring ports. The thing is that at present, the Strait of Gibraltar, the West Med ports are playing key role. In the case of Spain, we have 3 major ports, which is Valencia, Barcelona, we have here our colleague, and Algeciras. We are playing an important role just to give capacity, and I will say efficiency, according to the World Bank last study. And the thing is that we are trying to solve and collaborate in the difficult situation that we have in the Med, particularly with the Red Sea crisis. But the thing is that the cheapest and greenest energy is the energy that we don't use. And how can we achieve this goal? Very easy, by being efficient. In this sense, bad planning, early arrival of vessel at ports, waiting times mean unnecessary burning, bunkering, and emission of CO2. In this sense, IMOA is pushing to collaboration between stakeholders in the maritime sector to make possible the just-in-time concept. Algeciras Port and similar to Busan Port are totally committed to this objective and working together as members of the International Task Force Port Call Optimization. Algeciras Port is using digital port collaborative decision-making platforms to apply for this concept with tangible results about reducing waiting times and therefore emissions. We can go together one step forward, sharing experiences in technology or digital transformation, or even more, sharing operational information to make possible the port-to-port just-in-time concept. In the case of Algeciras in particular, working with this 2-for-1 formula just in time, we have been reducing 12% of the vessel waiting time, and that represents a reduction in emissions of 10%. That's what we call the 2-for-1. At the same time, ports are part of the solution to decarbonize the global economy, facilitating the greening of shipping sector and promoting maritime green corridors as one of the main initiatives for it. Let me share 3 main dimensions in this sense, as working as an energy hub. First one is being a corridor, green corridor for import-export of green hydrogen derivatives, with high capacity to produce renewable hydrogen in the energy hinterland of the port of Algeciras at very competitive prices and one of large scale. This will make it possible to meet local energy demand and at the same time export to Europe to derivatives, mainly ammonia. We have good examples with the Algeciras-Rotterdam Green Maritime Corridor. Secondly, development of alternative fuels for shipping and port readiness level. In this sense, a necessary collaboration is needed just to develop new fuels and at the same time adapt our infrastructure, because we don't have to forget that we have a new mix of fuels where it's necessary to have standards, protocols, and methodological guidelines working together in international perspective. At the same time, we have a green and digital corridor for shipping. In this sense, let me show a little bit. Present time, we are in the international tender between just to launch a green corridor, the first green corridor intercontinental maritime route between Tarifa, which is another port which is managed by Port Authority of Algeciras, and Tangier City. In this sense, the basis of the tender having to agree for the development of a green corridor, currently in the tendering place, as I mentioned before, and where the construction of new ships based on hybrid solutions with advanced biofuels or 100% electric is being considered. And the third dimension that we would like to highlight is the European Port Alliance. As I mentioned before, to fight against trafficking and organized crime. This is a very important dimension. We have been talking about innovation, we have been talking about sustainability, but what about security? So in this sense, Europe is launching the European Port Alliance that is really just to strengthen security in all European ports. In this sense, we are working from the beginning of the year in this new project with 200 million euros to fund modern equipment in order to help European Union customs officials scan containers and check imports more efficiently, working together in an efficient law enforcement and working via public and private partnership, which will support for authorities and shipping companies to protect logistics, information, staff, and processing imports. In this sense, together we can create a future where our ports are not only gateways to global trade, but also models of innovation, sustainability, and promoters of multilateral trade and facilitates at the same time the energy transition. The ports of today are not the ports of tomorrow, so let's build them together. Thank you. Sheshe.
Thank you, Gerardo. Thank you very much.
Hans-Sabina.
Now we'll continue with the next speaker. Now we go to Asia, to the third continent that participates in the panel. Tiger Huang, who is the Senior Director of Taiwan International Ports Corporation, will talk about energy, new energy in Taiwan ports and collaboration and other things. The floor is yours.
Thank you. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Tiger from Taiwan International Port Corporation. Thanks for BPS hosting and also invitation to BIPC. This is our first time joining the BIPC and also my personal. But I joined the Korean shipping business for 15 years before. So I'm very familiar with Korean and also Busan. So this is my second hometown, I always say. Okay. Today I want to introduce the TIPC strategy on the new energy industry and also what we are doing at the moment. And first of all, I want to introduce what is TIPC. May you know about the TIPC previous, we have 4 harbor bureau in Taiwan. And we integrate to be 2 functions. One is for the MPB, Maritime Port Bureau, which is in charge of the administration and the regulation management. And TIPC is running the port business at the Taiwan ports. And you can see the whole picture of the Taiwan ports. We have totally 4 branches and the 7 international ports plus 2 domestic ports, which is managed by TIPC. And we are running the business, especially including container business and any kind of general cargo. And also, we have many innovation business nowadays. So let's take a quick look about the overview, Taiwan new energy industries. First of all, I want to introduce our government energy transition plan. There are 3 goals in 2025. First of all, we want to reach a 50.2 new renewable energy in our power supply. And second, we need to deploy our solar power up to 20 gigawatt. And offshore wind, we are planning to reach 5.6 gigawatt to share the electric power and use the renewable power in Taiwan. And there's another strategy to be Taiwan 2050 net zero transition. We set the 12 key strategies, which including the wind power, solar power, and hydrogen, and also all the storage, energy storage, and any kind of the carbon neutral plans. So we are doing this, and on behalf of this 12 strategy, we're looking for any possibility to work in the ports. And the other, for the offshore wind industries, we set the 3 phases to develop our offshore wind power. And now we are in the phase 2, and it will up to 5.5 gigawatt end of 2025. And we are planning in the next 10 years, we will deploy another 10 gigawatts for the offshore wind power. And we are now doing so, and this is what happened in the port in Taiwan. And we are also evaluate all the industry, including the offshore wind. That's including the infrastructure and the developers and any kind of engineering and financing chain link. We separate this function and we find the options of the port we can develop. And the other one we talk about, just before we talk about the hydrogen industry, we are also set the goal for the 2025, we can reach 91 megawatt supply in Taiwan, and totally 891 megawatt in 2030. And the major purpose for the hydrogen will be electronic and also the fuel usage. And there are several industries in Taiwan currently. We have hydrogen refueling station and Thai Power company, and also gas supplying and vehicles. We are now developing deploying the hydrogen industry in Taiwan. And here we are thinking about the opportunities and the applications of the new energy industry and what we are developing in the ports. In Taiwan, as just mentioned, we have 7 international ports which are running by TIPC. That's why we integrate all the factors of the offshore wind power, and we separate by function for 4 aspects to develop the offshore wind power. First of all, we are doing the turbines pre-assembly area, which locates the major offshore wind port in Taichung. And the port of Anping is supporting the foundation storage. And the other one, we have a manufacturing area, which is located in Taichung, Taipei, and Kaohsiung. We are doing the nacelle and the bread and any kind of components in the port of Taiwan. And we also focus on how we can change in the domestic, the engineer and the staff can be work in the wind farm. So we have a training center in the port of Taichung, which is also subsidiary by the TIPC. And after establishing the offshore wind, we also need the O&M services. That's why we are also focusing on Taichung and Budai. We provide the O&M services and also the transportation for the wind farm operations. And for the next, from 2019, TIPC already started to deploy the solar power, and now we have a new connect terminals in Kaohsiung, where we also set 7 megawatt solar power in the ports. So we are now focusing on how we can generate more the green energy in the port. And for the hydrogen, we are now change our previous concept to be a landlord, to just leasing the land to the developers to running their business. We are trying to see any possibility to cooperate with developers and or stakeholders, how we can create our new economy or new business with our vendors or our stakeholders. And that's why we are signing the MOU with the many parties, and also we are seeking for any possibility to develop the hydrogen in the ports. And this is one of our plan for the green area. Here is in Taichung. We are now reclaiming totally 65 hectares for the green we call the green energy zone, and which including of course the offshore wind and also the hydrogen and the green energy. And the other one, we are also seeing another kind of a possibility for new energy in the ports. First of all, is the marine energy and the biomass. For the marine energy, we are thinking about the first possibility is the wave energy. So we indicate there is one of the port in Suao. We are starting to place an area for the offshore wave power developed in the port. It will come next year. So for the biomass gasification, is also developing in the ports to produce the new energy in the green renewable energy. Here comes the conclusion, but most important, we are trying to promote TIPC will be a sustainable ports and the cooperation development. And we are doing the steps by steps, and we are following the policies in the Taiwan and also the trend of the new renewable energy. Here is end of before my presentation. This is my new cruiser terminal, which is located in Taiwan. Some of my friends already visit there, and we are more than happy to welcome you to visit our port in Port of Kaohsiung. Thank you.
Thank you for this presentation. Actually, in all four presentations, the theme of energy has been touched to a greater or less extent among the other initiatives, and so it's interesting to see that energy is one field where we see plenty of collaboration between ports. The next speaker, I played the game with the different continents, and I was thinking that we have a balance of two speakers from each continent. But the next speaker, who is Jordi Torrent, he's head of business strategy at the Port of Barcelona. He's going to speak about collaboration between Barcelona and Busan, so partly European, partly Asian, but I have to reveal that also he has another capacity. He's the Secretary General of an association which is called MedPorts, another type of collaboration between ports, European and African ports. So indirectly, Africa is here with us. The floor is yours for your intervention. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Thanos, for the introduction. As you said, I wear different hats professionally. I'm the head of studies of the Port of Barcelona. As you said, Secretary General of the MedPorts Association. I only get one salary, yeah? And also General Manager of B2B Busan-Barcelona Logistic Hub, okay? Today I will be speaking with this hat, with this third hat, the one that belongs to B2B Logistics Busan-Barcelona Hub. Let me say first, I'm very happy to be in Busan. In the past years, I have been coming like twice as an average every year, and this year I had not been to Busan yet, so thanks to the port, to BPA, to the Port of Busan for the invitation to attend the Busan International Port Conference, and I finally made it just when the year was running out. As I said, I will be speaking as General Manager of B2B Busan Logistics Busan-Barcelona. For those that are not aware of this initiative, this is a joint company created in 2021 by the ports of Busan and the Port of Barcelona. The Port of Busan holds 51% of the shares of the company, and the Port of Barcelona 49%. This is an initiative of two governments, the Ministry of Public Works of Spain, the Ministry of Maritime Affairs of Korea, and two ports, the Port of Busan, the Port of Barcelona, in order to promote trade exchanges, maritime transportation between the two countries and the two ports. So the project has the support of the two governments, not only the two ports. And as I said, the objective of this initiative is to promote trade exchanges between the two countries and the two ports. Let me say, before I continue, just 1 minute, and we'll stick to the time, don't worry, Thanos, that when we started with this project in 2021, I knew very few things about Korea. Only my eldest daughter, that used to be a fan of Korean K-pop and Korean series. At home, I remember when she was 15, 16, 17, telling me, "Dad, you have to watch a TV series with me." And then I went to TV and saw all those Korean guys on TV. And I thought they were interesting, but I didn't understand very much the arguments, the plots, etc. No? So now, a few years after that, I can say I'm a fan of Korean culture, TV, music not so much, it's more hard for me, music, and gastronomy, okay? And let me say that for the last years in Barcelona, we have experienced an increase in Korean presence in Barcelona. When we started this project, there were 9 Korean restaurants in Barcelona. Now there are more than 40 Korean restaurants. We receive very often Korean bands that come to play their music in Barcelona. And I would say that the foreign community, non-European and non-American, the foreign community where the tourism is growing more in Barcelona is Korean. And it's the type of tourism that we like in Barcelona. They spend a lot of money, which is good. And this has also boosted a lot flight connectivity between the two cities. In this case, between Barcelona and Seoul, not Busan. We have a daily flight, and now we have a low-cost airline that started flying between Seoul and Barcelona that I'm going to try tomorrow for the first time, okay? So for the last 4 or 5 years, relations between the two cities and the two countries have increased a lot. So how are we, the two ports, trying to promote foreign trade between the two countries and the relations between the two ports? So basically, by offering logistic services in Barcelona for Korean companies exporting into Southern Europe. This initiative is also oriented on the other direction, no? From Spain into Korea, but obviously there's more need of warehousing services on the, let's say, outbound direction, Korea to Spain. No? So basically, what do? We have a warehouse run by both ports, and that has been subleased to a Korean operator, and from here we offer logistics services, picking, packaging, distribution, customs clearance, etc., to Korean companies exporting not only to Spain, obviously the main market is Spain, but also Spain, France, and other southern European countries. Also VAT assistance, customs assistance, etc. And what have been the results of this initiative? Obviously, not everything has to do with this initiative, but this initiative has been important in achieving these results. So in 2023, last year, the 3 traffics that grew the most in Barcelona were first, export of chemicals. Barcelona and the surrounding area is still a very important industrial area in Southern Europe, the biggest together with Northern Italy. So export of chemicals, which is a very important sector of our industry around Barcelona. Import of electric vehicles from China, also. This grew a lot last year in Barcelona for later distribution to 8 European countries. Also Tesla's fabric manufactured in Shanghai that were exported in Barcelona in order to be distributed all over Europe. And imports of containers from Korea. As you can see, last year the imports from Korea to the port of Barcelona to be later distributed in Spain and Southern Europe increased by 46%, which is an amazing increase compared to other traffics. So Barcelona is the biggest port in Southern Europe when it comes to traffic with Korea. And we also have assisted in several industrial projects that are being conducted by Korean companies in Spain, in the south of Barcelona next to Tarragona, northeast of Spain, companies such as Hyundai Mobis, Lotte Materials, Taiwan, that have invested in Barcelona. So B2B has also assisted those companies in their investment projects in Barcelona. Since we started, when we started, there were 3 direct connections by sea between Busan and Barcelona. Today there is 5. And as I said, also daily direct flights between Barcelona and Seoul. What about the future? We basically want to consolidate Barcelona as an industrial and logistic hub for Korean companies in a complex environment. Here, for instance, you can see how transit time have worsened since vessels were diverted from the Red Sea through the Cape of Good Hope. So you can see that as an average, some transit time have increased by 10, by 15 days compared to what it used to be through the Red Sea. So this doesn't help, obviously. Let me say that, like my colleague from Algeciras, and I don't want to be happy of something positive that is happening because a tragedy is happening somewhere else, which is the case in Gaza. But it's true that since the vessels were diverted from the Red Sea to the Cape of Good Hope, and I don't think we can consider this anymore temporary when it's been 8 months and it's going to be, for sure, the same amount of months in the future. We see how our traffic has increased by 23% this year. Basically, transshipment operations that were done in Eastern Mediterranean now are being done in Western Mediterranean. We see on the contrary how these first 8 months of 24 traffic with Korea has decreased a lot in containers. Why? Because some Korean companies that handle big volumes of low-value goods, such as chemicals, on the sense Korea, Spain, have gone back to conventional vessels. Because of the high freight rates that they were finding in the last months, they have gone back to conventional vessels, so that's why we have a decrease in the imports of containers. But the total in volumes is still, in tons, is still higher than in 2023, in this year, 2024. And finally, despite this decrease in container traffic in imports in 2024 compared to 2023, which was amazingly good, the traffic handles by B2B increased by 12%. We are handling in the warehouse, together with the logistics operators that operates the warehouse, tires, ATMs, cosmetics, and very different types of products. So I will leave it here, and I invite you to know this initiative being conducted by 2 ports and 2 ministries. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you, Jordi. We move to the 6th speaker of the panel, back here in the region, and Samuel Shaw, who is the regional director for Korea and Japan, for MPA, the MPA Singapore, Maritime Port Authority of Singapore, will give us his perspectives. Thank you.
Thank you. 안녕하십니까. I'm Samuel, and I'm from the Maritime and Port Authority of Singapore. Thank you for the introduction, Dr. Thanos. Thank you, everyone, for being here, and thank you to the Busan Port Authority for the invitation and the opportunity to share a little bit about what Singapore is doing. I'm happy to be back in Busan. I was just here earlier this month for Korea Maritime Week, so there really is a lot happening in Busan. And I think, as mentioned, I'm the regional director for Japan and Korea. So MPA has actually set up an office in Tokyo this year, specifically to cover our engagement with Korea and with Japan as well. We don't have much time, so I won't spend too much time on this slide. Basically, just to introduce that for Maritime Singapore, we do many different things. We are a container hub. We are also for this presentation, I think what is relevant is also that we are a very big bunkering hub. So 51 million tons of bunker was sold in Singapore last year. And what is interesting is that about 1% of the volumes last year was alternative fuel, which includes biofuel and LNG. And this year we are seeing an increase. So things are definitely changing in terms of the maritime sector. Some people have asked me today what's the difference between MPA and PSA. So MPA is actually an agency under the Ministry of Transport. So we are a government agency, whereas PSA is a port operator. In MPA's case, we are actually a port authority, and we are also a port regulator, and we are also a port planner. And we also promote the maritime industry as a whole in Singapore. Now, just to explain, I think most of you all know about this, the context for a lot of changes in the maritime sector nowadays is the revised GHG strategy and the new goals set by IMO for the maritime industry. In Singapore, we also have a net zero by 2050 goal, just like many of the panelists here. And this is a common problem that everyone shares, and I think this conference is a very good opportunity to share our experiences. So I'm just going to share some of what Singapore is doing. Not all of these areas will be touched on today, just some of them. For port terminals, we are looking at how to decarbonize our port terminals. I think similar to others today, we are looking at automation. We're looking at introducing solar energy at the terminals. In terms of reclamation, I think today we talked about the circular economy. So it may be of interest for you to know that when we are doing reclamation for Tuas Port, actually more than 50% of the materials used in filling up the reclamation is actually reused material from other construction projects in Singapore. So in a sense, we are trying to reuse even when we reclaim new land. Okay, so I think I've touched on this. Let's continue. Another thing we're doing is just-in-time arrival, where we try to have a digital platform to coordinate the booking of marine services. This is to help with faster turnaround time and reduce GHG emissions. Now, I want to touch about something that I think is perhaps very relevant for ports, which is the little vessels, the small boats that are inside the port. I think this is here we are. Let's go to this slide. We are looking at electric craft, among other things. But what I want to touch on when we talk about collaboration is this. MPA and we are not so familiar with electric. We're not Tesla, we're not a car company. So we do have 5 electric vessels right now inside Singapore, operating inside the port. But how we did this was we worked with industry. So we issued an expression of interest, which is basically an invitation to industry to submit proposals on design and ideas to promote adoption of electric hovercraft. and we shortlisted some proposals, and we're working with them on this. Now, for new vessels, they also need a new kind of financing. So we similarly issued an invitation to industry to give us ideas that we can co-develop with them on the financing and insurance solutions for electric hovercraft. So we hope that there will be new ideas on how to lower the cost of adoption for these. Now, for electric vessels, they do need charging points. So as a port authority and port regulator, we are working with research institutes to develop a charging master plan, basically to study and tell us where to put these charging points. That's what we can do as the government. But in terms of how to commercialize these charging points, again, we issued a call for proposals, and we invited industry to give us some ideas on how to develop, how to commission, maintain, and operate these e-hovercraft charging points. We received a few proposals, and the first pilot has already been deployed earlier this year at Marina South Pier. So that is a public charging point for electric craft. So in this way, we are trying to collaborate with industry. Similar to others, we are also looking at harnessing renewable energy, whether it's through solar or even tidal energy. I want to touch on marine fuels. I think you all know that there are many fuels in the market. Let's not spend too much time on this. So in terms of methanol, we are trying to do various things. For methanol, we have had the first bunkering operation in Singapore last year, and we had 2 more this year. We are working on several different areas, and okay. Sorry, I think I didn't put it on the slide, but what we're doing for methanol is, again, we issued in December last year an expression of interest. So we're inviting people to tell us that they're interested in methanol bunkering. And this is not an application for licensing yet. This is an earlier stage where we want to invite companies to give us information. How much demand do they foresee? What are their off-takers? Where do they think the demand will come from? And this is to allow us to refine the intended regulatory framework. So we're taking ideas at this early stage, and hopefully when we do issue a call for licensing, we will have a better framework. For ammonia, I think we don't have much. I'll just focus on the bottom left. So similarly, I think Sam mentioned that ports are natural conveners and natural aggregators. And in this case, we are actually working with the Energy Market Authority in Singapore to aggregate demand for ammonia between power and bunkering. So we're inviting proposals to develop lower zero carbon ammonia power and bunkering solutions. We have shortlisted some of these proposals, and hopefully next year we'll be able to decide on the developer. So again, we're trying to work across industries and across sectors to aggregate demand. Okay, so I think we can skip this. International collaboration. For green and digital shipping corridors, we believe that these corridors can help us to collaborate. And we have signed 5 corridors to date, and are also working with the Silk Alliance. So that includes across different continents as well. In Europe, we have a corridor with Rotterdam. In America, we have LA and Long Beach. In Asia, we have with Tianjin and with Japan, and then with Australia in Oceania. And we are in discussions with other partners. If you look out in the news, hopefully you'll see some news in future. So I just want to end by thanking the organizers for the opportunity, and I look forward to greater collaboration with other ports and as well as stakeholders in the maritime community. So I think we'll end here. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Samuel. All right, 6 excellent speakers. I think we are privileged that we had their interventions. It's time for questions. We can ask whatever we wish. Any thoughts, any questions? Or should I go first? Any question from the audience? Oh, there's, sorry, but the light does not really help. If there is, okay. Okay. One question on the right, and then we go to the back.
Over there first. It's okay.
Okay, please, a microphone towards
I'm first.
the last row.
Okay.
Afterwards. Yeah.
Okay. I want to ask to the Jordi. Okay, Jordi. I see your presented about the collaborate Busan and Barcelona. Yeah, I see the good traffic and good growing. Your collaborate Barcelona to Busan and Busan. I want to ask something about what kind of success factor about your innovation partnership. Because I am from Batam, yeah. I am from Batam because Batam currently still preparing about the new port. Many partner from another country come to us, they collaborate. Because of that, I want to your experience make good collaborate Busan to Barcelona. Thank you.
There are several success factors, and in order not to extend myself too much, it might be some topic or typical, but I think people is the main success factor. I think we found on the other side, in the port of Busan, an attitude, excellent attitude, excellent professionals, really. Busan has an office in Europe, based in Rotterdam, chaired by Mrs. Chin, with whom I speak almost on a daily basis. The people here in the headquarters, so people is the first success factor. Then having the right partner. So we are not providing the services directly. It's a third company. And obviously there has to be a demand. Without a demand, this doesn't work. No? So I would say all this, but people is the first thing. And let me say something more, and I finish fast. When I first met the people from Busan, I was amazed on how many hours they worked. So putting lots of effort, working a lot, is also extremely important, obviously.
All right. Thank you, Jordi. Do you have a microphone?
네, 저기 마이크 전달 부탁드리겠습니다. 뒤쪽에 계신 분께 마이크 전달 부탁드리겠습니다. 네, 저기 맨 뒤에 검정색 옷 입으신 분이요.
For a bag. Good afternoon. I am Can you hear the interpretation? Thank you. I'm a student at Donghua University. My name is Chiung Han. I'm studying international trade. And as a student of international trade, I would like to thank all of you for such insightful presentations. I really appreciate it. In the process of building decarbonization infrastructure, in the short run, there would be some negative impact on the freight rate. And the carriers pursuing some streamlining and efficiency and ports. How can we persuade them into more actively collaborating with each other for the purpose of decarbonization and building decarbonization infrastructure? I'd like to ask for your take on this.
Anyone who? Noel, we'll start with Noel. Sorry. You. It's up to you. I mean, if you want to intervene as well. Okay, we'll go first.
Sure, I can take the first stab at it. You know, you're right in that there's very little incentive for carriers and specifically to transition to these alternative fuels given the costs associated with it, right? I think it's important, there's a few things here, right? First, I talked a lot about ports being aggregators of demand. In order for us to transition to these alternative fuels, you need scale. Part of the problem today when it comes to methanol or ammonia is that we don't have sufficient supply. If you look at the cost of methanol, it's 4 times, at least, of normal bunker fuel. In order for us to truly transition, we need to get to as close to price parity as we possibly can. That might require some sort of subsidy, whether that is on the government side or whether that's the IMO is contemplating a tax on traditional fuels that can then subsidize the green fuels. And so it's really important for us to really leverage all the different mechanisms that exist in order to incentivize the companies to do it. As I said, as port authorities, we're not regulatory agencies. Unfortunately, we can't make them comply with these sustainable fuel standards. However, what we can do is we can build the infrastructure that reduces the friction for these companies to then transition to these fuels. This is why green corridors are so expensive. So important. This is why bunkering, having the bunkering facilities is important. And so I think that is the key, is providing incentives for these companies to transition.
Just to add to what Sam said, and first of all, it's great to see students here in the audience. You're the future, and you're going to be the ones solving these problems down the line. But at the Port of Long Beach, we've been at it for about 20 years. In fact, next year we'll be celebrating the 20th anniversary of our Green Port policy. And what we've learned along the way is that it takes a combination of regulation, incentives, and really master planning with our industry partners to ensure that that transition to zero emissions equipment is as seamless as possible. The cost of doing nothing today is going to increase exponentially tomorrow. And so I think it's important for us to be able to articulate that to all of our partners, that if we don't start early enough, the cost is going to be greater down the line. Thankfully, in our case, the industry has really stepped up. Back in 2010, when we implemented the very first Clean Trucks program, the industry stepped up. Collectively, they invested almost $1 billion in newer, cleaner trucks. And that's the kind of effort that it will require in order to get every segment of the supply chain to also decarbonize, reduce emissions, and get us there. I'll just give you a couple of examples. We continue to collect what we call a Clean Truck Rate Fund, which is a $10 per TEU assessment. Over time, we generate about $90 million a year. We use that as an incentive to help our partners in the motor carrier segment to invest in cleaner trucks. Now, obviously, that is not going to be enough, but by giving them an incentive and also working with our power providers and our marine terminal operators to install charging stations, we're actually creating that pathway. So again, it really is all of us working together, coordinating our efforts, bringing our power providers into the conversation as well. And finally, you asked about efficiency. We believe that efficiency and sustainability are two sides of the same coin. If we can, as we become more efficient, we're going to become more sustainable and vice versa.
Yeah, in this sense, totally agree. I had the opportunity during my presentation to say that the cheapest and the greenest energy is the energy that we don't use. That means that we have to be efficient. By doing that, in the case, we reduce 12% the idle time and 10% the emissions. So this is one of clear message, efficiency. Secondly, I think that we as port authorities, we have an important role to facilitate the transition. Tano mentioned in his presentation that we have to provide, like a multi-fuels gas station. Well, perhaps it's something that we are doing at the present time because we don't know finally which one is going to be the final energy, I will say. So if it's going to be one only. So we have to follow and collaborate with initiative, private initiative, and follow the market. And at the same time, there is a question which is very important, which is the cargo owners. Cargo owners want to reduce their footprint. So they are pushing, which our needs just to the shipping lines to go together in working in those directions. And at the same time, at least in Europe, we are working in the OPS, the onshore power supply, which is give electricity to the quays. So it's an important investment that major European ports are doing, and I think that it's going to be finalized, this project, by 2030 at least. The major ports in Europe, we have to have all these facilities ready, even though the biggest port next year, most of them, we are going to start just developing the OPS in our infrastructure.
Thank you. It's up to you.
Yeah, agree with you because we think the new energy is still developing, and also we are looking for the trend. And my personal, I think, is not over-invest, because we invest any kind of fuel, that means nothing, because we don't have a sufficient area or sufficient capital to invest many kind of fuel in the ports. So that's why we need to select what we need to do. So we are now discussing, especially everybody may know, Taiwan has three major carriers in Taiwan, which including Yanmin, Wanhai, and Evergreen. Yanmin is not have no further movement, but for Evergreen and Wanhai, they choose the Busan as their new vessel building. So in the port of Taiwan, we need to consider in how if we can provide kind of the new energy, new fuel to the carriers and also our customers. So this one we are thinking about very carefully how we can do or what we need to plan in the fuel transition. So this one I need to reply to you is we are now focusing on in period we need to make a certain plan to make sure what the fuel we need to take and what we need to choose. So currently I think the Busan is the major purpose in the port of Taiwan. Thank you.
When it comes to the energy, I think about two other sectors. One was mentioned by the president of Algeciras, where we decided to invest without knowing really if this was going to be used. No, one was rail. We invested in Barcelona, in Algeciras, for instance, speaking about Spain, hundreds of millions in the development of rail infrastructure, and it was not used for some years. No, and then later it was used, and it was a great investment. Although we didn't know, we were not sure about the return this would have. Now OPS again. Also, no, we in Barcelona and Algeciras and other European ports are doing the same. We have committed more than 120 million investment in for deployment of OPS for containers, cruise ships, and ferries, without knowing really if the vessels would connect. Well, we had the first vessel connected to a container vessel last week in Barcelona. No? So at the end, ports sometimes we make bets, and fortunately, normally we don't fail, but sometimes we fail. No? And when it comes to energy, it's true. It's difficult to know where to go for ammonia, methanol, but methanol looks like a good bet, I think.
I think the other speakers have covered a lot of the points. So I would just want to add one thing, which is that part of the question asked about how can we encourage collaboration. And I think it's already mentioned earlier that ports tend to act naturally as conveners and aggregators. But we can also take a bit more active approach. So just to give an example, we can help to provide a platform to link people up and not just leave it to natural market forces. Or rather, we can find a way to tap on natural market forces. So for example, when we did the methanol expression of interest in Singapore, we did several rounds with the industry. And the purpose is not just to say, give me your information and I will look at your information. We went beyond that and we said that, okay, now let's have a session with everyone who submitted a proposal. That's partly so that they can explain their proposals to Singapore a bit more. But the other reason is so that they can network among themselves and talk among themselves between different countries and so on, so that they can also discover and link up the demand. Because, for example, a European consortium may know the offtake or the potential methanol demand from a European company. But when we create this platform for them to network, it allows them to talk to each other and try to find more business opportunities for themselves. So we know that all of them are interested in methanol, but now we give them a platform and we try to create some networking events for them. So that's one way that ports can try to give that extra little bit to facilitate this kind of collaboration. Just adding on to what else has already been said. Thank you.
All right, thank you. I will ask a question myself. I will take advantage because I wanted to ask. I always want to ask this question that I have never done yet. You presented, each of you presented a couple or more successful examples of cooperation. So everybody will go home and say, okay, the first thing that I have to do is collaborate with other ports. But have you faced any difficulties, any struggles? Is there something that challenge your efforts to develop collaboration? Or is everything rosy and everybody is ready to collaborate? I don't know the answer, but I wanted to ask, what has been your major challenge in developing collaboration with other ports? Is it that ports are not ready? Is it the themes? Is it something else?
I think the greatest challenge that we face as an industry is that we are headed into uncharted waters, right? Let's take maritime fuels, for instance. I agree that methanol is promising, but there's no promise that methanol will be the future fuel. It could be ammonia. It could be, some other alternatives. And so when you think about it from our perspective, you are investing potentially tens, if not hundreds of millions of dollars into an infrastructure with not quite a guarantee that that infrastructure will cater towards where the industry is headed. This is where, and I think one of the other panelists touched upon this as well, is where we are waiting for the industry to converge on certain practices so that the infrastructure then can be built. But there are those who believe that this is where regulation might help, because the regulations can provide certainty around what we feel is uncertain at the moment, right? And so this is where conversations in the IMO and peer-to-peer government relations makes a huge difference, because if you could regulate these industries to converge on sustainable fuels or anything like that, then you have that certainty and to then make that investment. But I think the biggest challenge is that everyone's kind of in this waiting period and no one wants to be the fool who made the wrong investment.
Just addressing your question generally about the challenges with collaboration, right, is two examples. I'll use one since my colleague from MPA is here. The Green and Digital Shipping Corridor between MPA Singapore, Los Angeles, Long Beach has been very effective. And part of the reason why it's been effective is because the three organizations share a common philosophy. We don't just give it lip service, we actually believe it, and we share those goals. But secondly, and perhaps most importantly, is there's follow-up and there's follow-through. There are monthly meetings. Roger, who's in the audience with me, is in these 5 a.m. phone calls with Singapore, right? So I think an observation is, and we have several MOUs with several ports, including Kaohsiung just last month, with Busan and several others. I think what I've observed and what I've learned is, as you enter into these agreements and these frameworks, is make sure that there's sufficient follow-through so that these agreements result in tangible results. And the example with our good friend, President Kang here, just a couple weeks ago, he was in Los Angeles in a grand opening for a logistics center. And we were happy as a sister port to be part of that, right? So those are examples of what you could do if there is sufficient follow-through. And the last point is sometimes there's leadership transitions. And so you have to institutionalize these collaborative agreements so that no matter who comes in or who goes, that agreement receives the follow-up that it requires.
Well, I think that the key question is just to that your partner, that the port that you work with or the private company is a question of open mind, it's a question of vision, and it's a question of leadership. In my presentation, I show the experience in the Strait of Gibraltar. So it's a place where with our neighbors, we have different neighbors, but in particular our neighbor Tangermet, we compete directly in containers, but we collaborate 100% in road traffic and other traffics. So you have to analyze where you have to compete or where you have to collaborate. And there is no white or black. So you have to have this vision and this leadership, because at the end of the day, you have your customers that you have to take care of them. So this is our vision, that to pay the best service to our customers, and in this sense, it's important to have this vision and to have this leadership.
I think conversation and collaboration with ports is very important, also in the TIPC point of view, because I think just before I said about what not to overinvest and how to prevent. You talk to your ports, and talk to the ports. They will tell you what they faced some problem or they have problem they have. Then we can know how to avoid the risk from this. And the second is that we can know the advantage from the other ports. For example, like previous, we are working on develop our offshore wind. We need to see what they are doing in the European ports or other ports, what they are doing for our development respective, to understand what we can do for this one. So I totally agree to collaboration with the ports, and also we have a very good relationship, also including Busan Port and also every port in here. We should be partnership, and we should cooperate together. Thank you.
The main difficulty when to collaborate between ports, time difference. That's the main difference. For the rest, it's okay.
I think one of the challenges, of course, is that people and stakeholders are different. So sometimes the person you want to work with is not yet ready. And also, people have different interests and different working styles. So I'll just give 2 examples. First, about different working models. So in the green corridors that Singapore signed, you will notice that some are with ports, a single port, like with Rotterdam, some are with 2 ports, like Los Angeles and Long Beach, and some are with countries, like for Japan and Australia. And people have asked MPA, which model do you use? Is it a port-to-port or is it a port-to-country? And our answer is, it depends. Because the other side has different interests, they have different operating structure, and they have different partners, like Los Angeles and Long Beach come on together. So that's one thing you need to do, flexibility. You need to understand the other partner. So that takes time, of course. You have to invest in the relationship. When it comes to failure, so I think sometimes you have to be prepared to have different pace. So when we did just-in-time arrival, it's a lot more difficult for the tanker segment in Singapore due to certain structures in the industry. So, but you don't close the door. You say, okay, we'll do with containers first, and we'll work with bulk carrier. We'll work with other segments first, and let's come back again another day. So there will be some failures along the way, but you don't have to close the door. You just say, let's work on what we can, and we'll come back to this topic another time. So that's just some thoughts.
Thank you. Thank you for the frank and very open replies. I think that it's time to wrap up. I think that we had a great session. It took 1 hour and 3/4 long. So I think that I didn't feel bored personally. I hope that you share my excitement with these 6+1 great speakers from all over the world. So I think that a round of applause is all due. Thank you all for your participation. Thank you.
Well, I think it was really wonderful and amazing to talk about uncharted territory. And in 5 years, maybe we'll be gathered here again at the BIPC and talk about one dominant maritime energy. So I'm looking forward to that. So I would like to extend my deepest gratitude to our panelists. And I have to thank our moderator, Professor Palace, for your wonderful time management. Why don't we give a big round of applause to our moderator and panelists once again.